Hi everybody, welcome to my next movie review. I forget who it was that I told that I'm going to do a movie review and actually show me on it. Part of the reason why that's not happening in this movie review is because where I'm sitting shooting this video right now, there's a big old Christmas tree right behind me, and it's, one of them things where, this movie that I'm going to be talking about, it's not a Christmas movie. It'd be one thing if I was doing, like The Nightmare Before Christmas by Tim Burton or something, but I'm not. That's part of the reason why, I got a picture of Penny Marshall here. Laverne from Laverne and Shirley. I'm actually going to do a movie review of a movie she had something to do with. So, that's part of the reason why I'm doing it this way again. And I haven't gotten around to watching Burlesque or anything yet. I do have a movie review that, like I mentioned, that I want to do here that involves Penny Marshall. It's the movie based on a book called Riding in Cars with Boys. It's an autobiography, or autobiographical book based on the life of Beverly D'Onofrio. And it was, of course, a movie that Penny Marshall directed and starred Drew Barrymore, Steve Zahn, Brittany Murphy, and James Wood. Well, I actually watched this movie recently. I like Drew Barrymore a lot because, she's a few months older than I am. Of course, that's kind of telling my age, kind of telling hers too. But, Drew's, like I said, a few months older than I am. But this movie is, well, on the one hand, it's kind of, it's kind of hard to watch because it's, kind of like the preface of it. It's like, it's based on real life, and, well, I kind of knew that going in, that, that's what it was based on. The movie was, for me, kind of, strange, because it's, it talks about, a strained relationship between a mom and her son. I know there's, parents that go through strained relationships with their kids. And this movie's a prime example of that. It also talks about teen pregnancy. One of the things that I had a problem with in this movie is, it's about, the intelligent but naive Beverly D'Onofrio, who's of course played by Drew Barrymore, who's a teenager back in the early 1960s who wants to become a writer. When she turns 15 years old, Beverly and her best friend Faye, who's played by Brittany Murphy, go to a party and get drunk. Beverly ends up having sex with a friendly stranger named Ray, who's played by Steve Zahn. Beverly finds out she's pregnant and, tries to have an abortion, but, can't bring herself to do it. Ray feels that it would be right to propose to Beverly, and Ray professes his love for her, and she reluctantly replies the same. At their wedding, her best friend Faye announces that she's also pregnant, and the two girls, although they're upset, celebrate the fact that they will both have little girls together. Of course, as time passes, the two girls realize they're missing out on, life for a 15, 16-year-old kid, prom, education, different things, that a normal 15, 16, 17-year-old kid goes through. I actually do know, some girls that had kids back when they were teenagers. I'd say 3 or 4 of them. And I tell you what, from what I remember of them, being a teen mother is not exactly a good thing. They had a horrible time with it. And the one, it was so funny. I remember this just as an aside. The one girl, we went over and had a baby shower for her. And I picked up her little boy after he'd been born, and I held him a little bit. And when I, picked him up, put him on my shoulder, and kind of rubbed his back a little bit, the baby groaned. It felt good. And she's like, how'd you get him to do that? And I said, I showed her what I did, and she's like, I've never heard him make that noise before. She's like, do it again. And I picked the little fella up, and I rubbed his back, and he just groaned like it felt good to have me rub his back. And then he burped. It was funny. I was like, that's how you do it. And she's like, you've been around little kids before. And I'm like, look, I have a large family. They play past the baby all the time in my family. I'm serious. During the holidays, the family can get together, and they've got a little person, like a baby. They play past the baby. Everybody gets to hold the baby, except for like the real little kids, but all the grown-ups and the teenagers get to play past the baby. But that aside, I want to get back to this movie. Of course, what winds up happening is, Beverly has the baby, and what happens is, when she goes into labor and her water breaks, her and Ray were having a fight, and Beverly's water breaks in the kitchen. She's standing there, and I remember this in the movie. She's holding some stuff in her hands, and she goes, "Mom, what's going on here?" And her mom looks at her and goes, "Your water broke." She's like, it looked like she peed on herself, And I looked at the screen and said, "Your water broke, you idiot," And I'm like, hello, duh, didn't they teach you anything when you were in school? Seriously. And of course, the adult Jason, who's played by Logan Lerman, hates his mother for making Ray leave, and Beverly, of course, doesn't take responsibility for her part in the whole situation and blames Jason for the way her life turned out, really hard and everything. Part of my beef with this movie is Beverly, the character of Beverly seems extremely, and I hate to sound mean, she looks almost immature in this movie. Well, of course, she was a teenager. And I'm like sitting there looking at her going, if it had been me in that situation, I would have done one of two things. Either I would have had an abortion, or I would have adopted the kid out, just because, depends on me. But of course, they talk about in the movie the fact that she's Catholic, so that kind of rules out the abortion one. But, to each his own. I mean, she raised the kid and ended up writing a book, and it got made to a movie. This is kind of like, like one of those movies, that happened. It's based on real life, like Aaron Brockovich, except for Aaron's situation was a whole different ball of wax there. Of course, the whole thing, it's pretty interesting. James Woods plays the dad in this movie. He plays Beverly's dad. Excuse me, had a sneaky yawn in there. What winds up happening is, James's character is all, tough and everything on his daughter and all. Of course, ironically, James, it's kind of strange seeing him in this movie because of, I looked at him and I was thinking about, the Vampires movie he was in, is the Vampire Slayer, and I'm like, it's like I thought, oh God, this is like a big change, between, the Vampires movie and this. But he did a good job in it. Drew Barrymore did a good job. Much to her credit. And the whole cast was really, really good. One of the strangest scenes is with Drew Barrymore, and she's standing there out in the yard with Brittany Murphy as Faye, and they're like, waving at this one friend that, came by to tell him she's engaged. Excuse me, another yawn. She is leaving to go to NYU, and she's gotten in, good and everything. And it's just, it just kind of is like ironic, and I'm like thinking, well, this is part of the reason why I think that, Beverly should have gave Jason up for adoption, because it would have been doing her and him a favor, because Beverly could have, instead of, like drying weed in her oven and getting sent to jail by her dad on it and everything, could have had a much better life, and would have been a lot better off, and I think Jason would have been a lot better off too if he'd, been adopted out, because he would have been, probably put in a better, living arrangement, and he wouldn't have ever had to put up with his mom like he did, because it shows him in the movie, cooking for his mom, helping his mom out around the house, and I'm like thinking, that's not such a far cry to have, having a little kid help out around the house. I mean, because sometimes, the parents can't do everything, and, as far as, like, Ray goes, what wound up happening is he ended up confessing to his father-in-law, Beverly's dad, that Ray was a drug addict, and what wound up happening is, like I mentioned before, Ray gets kicked out. Well, of course, Ray does the right thing and signs the papers to let Beverly write the book, when, years later, everything is passed. Of course, his, second wife, because they obviously got divorced, he was like, don't sign it, we want to get a lot of money out of her, so we can survive and everything. And, Jason tells his mom, he's like, there's my dad in there, and he's, got, like, no teeth, and, he's living in filth, I think, and he's, like, upset to see his dad like that. And I'm, like, thinking, well, the guy was a drug addict, what did you expect? And what ends up happening is, Jason and Beverly, make peace with each other, and then, I'm going to actually tell you how the movie ends on this one, because, I just was kind of indifferent towards it, just because, well, to be honest with you, it was an okay movie. It just wasn't one of my more favorite movies. The end, what happens is Jason and Beverly make peace with each other, and Jason goes to be with Faye's daughter, who he's in love with, and Beverly gets a ride home from her dad, and the two of them make peace with each other too, and and that's how the movie ends. It kind of bugged me for like a couple hours afterwards. I was like, I just kept thinking about, on the one hand, this kind of glorifies teen pregnancy, but on the other hand, I think it should be used as a warning as into, what not to do, because let's face it, I saw that one girl that I was talking about earlier, a few years later, the one that I was talking about, like, I picked her son up and rubbed his back, and he kind of groaned like that felt good. She was still with the baby's daddy, and the kids, I'd say, were about 5, and she had, that one was about 5 years old, and she had another one who was, I'd say, about 2, and I hate to say it, but they didn't look all that good. They looked like they'd been run the wrong way through a meat grinder, I hate to say. That's just how they looked to me. They just looked pitiful, and I felt bad for them. And, there I was in college, and I was working part-time somewhere, and I was just like, it made me think about it, and this movie made me think about her and some other folks that I knew that, kept their kids and, went on to high school and everything, and I remember how hard their lives were, and, I just want to use this, it's like this movie made me think about that. If you watch this movie, it does. It makes you think about, like, when you're in high school, what's more important, fooling around and, doing that kind of stuff, or, like being responsible and stuff. Granted, Beverly did do the responsible thing and raise her son, but, she had a very hard time with it, and that's normal, because most 15, 16-year-old kids teenagers want to be 15, 16-year-old teenagers, But anyway, I am planning on doing, as an aside, some more movie reviews here soon. And I guarantee you that as soon as I get my Christmas tree down after Christmas passes, I'll start really shooting videos with you seeing me. I just don't want to be shooting very many videos with the old Christmas tree behind me. Well, that Christmas tree ain't old, it's only 2 years old, but yeah, I don't like having a Christmas tree behind me. I'm trying to shoot non-Christmas videos. Well, anyway, I want to thank you guys for watching, and I hope you guys have a great evening. Bye.